In this video, we're going to install AIX, IBM's Unix variant, over the network with something called a NIM server. Our test subject will be this RS6000 Unix workstation from the mid-1990s. We'll dig up an old SCSI drive to get inside of it, see if that SCSI drive actually works, and learn how to successfully configure a NIM or Network Installation Management server. My NIM server is running on some massive IBM P-Series gear over in the retro rack. We'll dive into all the various NIM concepts and how they interact, and finally get a running install of AIX 5.1 on this old guy. Let's get into it. On the bench today, I've got this IBM RS6000 43P Model 140, a Unix workstation from 1996, sporting a PowerPC processor inside. If you're getting deja vu, don't worry. I made a previous video taking a look at this thing, cleaning it up a bit, and seeing if I could power it on. But it didn't have a hard drive inside, so I attempted to netboot this as a diskless client using IBM's NIM, or Network Installation Management. NIM theoretically lets you store the operating system media on a server, do some configuration about what clients are allowed to talk to it, and finally perform a RIPL, or Remote Initial Program Load, to either install an operating system or run the operating system directly over the network. I could not get the diskless setup working for this guy, so today we're going to get a hard drive in this thing and configure the NIM server to let me install AIX, IBM's Unix variant, which almost certainly would have been running on this guy at the time. I'll do a slightly deep dive into the world of NIM, all the different resources, configurations, and concepts you have to wrap your head around to perform a network installation of AIX. But first, let's power this thing on and I'll show you how it's doing. Got my Unix workstation of the future set up here. I really need to get some mice and keyboard for these things. It looks ridiculous, but let's power it on. This one happens to have a graphics card in it. I think I put that in the other video. I've never used AIX with any sort of graphical capabilities. That should be kind of cool. It takes several moments for the display to come to life, so it's been running for, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds now. You get the beep, and then you get the IBM splash screen. I'm going to hit F1. Sorry, I covered that little chime as I was talking. So let's take a look at boot. This is System Management Services. There is a terminal version. I think everyone just calls it SMS. Let's go look at the boot order. And it knows about a diskette, it knows about a CD-ROM, and 2 Ethernet adapters. It's got an integrated one, and there's a, I think it's a PCI card in there as well. So no hard disks. And I think we can go look at config. And yeah, it sees the graphics adapter. It knows about all the other peripherals. Obviously, no hard drive inside. So let's power this thing down, find a hard drive for it, and see if it'll detect it. It's got this lock on the front, which actually locks the case. Mine, the case is loose, and the lock is in the locked position, so I can't actually close the case all the way because that lock is meant to secure it, and I don't have the key. I actually got a lock picking kit and spent, I don't know, an hour with this thing, and got nowhere, of course. So let's open this up. So down in here is where we're going to need to install a hard drive. It's got this SCSI 2 connector style, and I did not have any SCSI 2 hard drives. I've got the adapters and stuff, but I didn't pursue that in the other video. We're going to try that today because recently my buddy Andy gave me an absolute treasure trove of SCSI drives. I haven't thoroughly examined all of them. A bunch of them are Apple drives. So there's an Apple drive and another one. They're surprisingly light. A Quantum Fireball. And looks like we've got some other drives in here. Look at this one. Old Connor IDE drive. Sure that doesn't work. This one's really cool. Another Apple SCSI drive. It's got the stepper motor exposed. I'm going to need these drives. I don't know if any of these work, but I'm going to need these Apple ones for some Apple gear I'm going to cover someday. But I did find a really promising candidate here. A Seagate SCSI drive with the right connector, and it looks like brand new. It's a Barracuda. And yeah, I think we're going to try this one first. And if not, we'll go down the pile here. I've got the adapters and everything we might need. One thing that might cause us some issues is figuring out if we need to set some jumpers on these pin headers here. In fact, there's some on the other side as well. For science, we'll just plug it in with no jumpers and see what it does. But yeah, I'm probably gonna have to dig up the documentation for this and figure that out. This is obviously not how you should do this. I've got it hooked up outside the case. These things can get pretty hot, especially the Ultra 3 drives. This is an older one. In my experience, they definitely get hotter than IDE drives, and they're expecting the case fan to blow air across them as they're installed, right? But maybe sucking from the back. But just to make the troubleshooting easier, I'm going to hook it up outside the case for now, and then I'll be able to hear it and feel it and listen to it and stuff. Let's power it up, see what happens. It sounds healthy. No grinding or anything. Let's see if this thing likes it. That was way too easy. 9 gig hard disk. It sees it. It's not in the boot order yet. Fix that later. This does not bode well. That was way too simple. Don't know if it's healthy yet, but it sounds really good. I don't know if you can hear that grinding noise. That's one of the fans in here I need to repair. It's probably a little aggressive over the microphone, but to my untrained ear, I'm liking that drive. I'm going to get it installed. We're going to go for broke, and then we'll move forward. They packed a lot of stuff into this case in a pretty intelligent way. It's a pretty compact unit, but the problem, of course, is I can't get into here and just slide a drive in. I'm going to see if this whole assembly is just going to come out for me. It might be on a hinge on the other side or something. Hopefully I can just take... That screw's gone. Hopefully I can just take this whole thing out somehow. I can't remember. I think you take out this bracket and it takes this locking tab off. All right, I think this one, yeah, comes up. I guess, you know, that's also a hard drive bay. I suppose I could just put it in here. Maybe I'll do that. That'll be easier. Then I have to mess around with this when that drive is inevitably bad. This thing, probably 80% of the time, makes pretty bad fan noise, and that one seems crusty. You probably can't tell. I think it's that one. So I'm just going to pop it off the heat sink, and let's see if we can't revive that while we're doing this. And then eventually I'll just get a full replacement. That's probably a standard size. Let's see if I can record the before on this before we revive it. I can hear it pretty audibly to my ear. I don't know if the mic's going to pick it up. Definitely some crusty bearings. So this is a trick I learned from Mike Tech's channel. We're going to cut open the sticker and expose the bearing, hopefully. I think I'm on the right side here. Yep, there it is. And then I've got some 3-in-1 oil. I've done this on several fans and it works pretty well. I mean, it's not always a slam dunk, but yeah, it's already better. A lot of it is I wouldn't even hear it. I could feel the vibration of the grit in the bearing. And yeah, it is significantly better. I'm going to let that seep in there a little bit. It didn't really soak up any more oil because the bearing is so small, so I wiped up the excess with paper towel because I'm going to put Kapton tape on here, and it doesn't really want to stick with the oil on there, obviously, so I'm just using IPA, 99% alcohol here, to hopefully get the oil off and not get any alcohol down in that bearing. There is an art to filming close-up work like this, and I don't have it, so I always get a yet another new appreciation for folks like Adrian's Digital Basement that do work like this on camera all the time. This is Kapton tape, and it works pretty good for sealing that up. All right. I still feel a little bit of friction, but you certainly can't hardly hear it anymore. I think it's going to be better at any rate. Well, I am going to have to take all this out because IBM's got some little guides here. It doesn't allow this taller drive to fit in. I suppose you could probably get two regular 3.5-inch drives. Anyway, I'll pull all this out and get everything put back together. This is about as annoying as you think it would be. This whole unit does come out though. Oh yeah. On the other side on that post, it had one of these plastic retention clips which are supposed to release when you pull it out, but of course the plastic's all old, so I kind of didn't destroy it. I think I'm probably just not going to put that back in if I'm being honest. It slides pretty good into these clips anyway, and then there's a retaining screw on the top. Remember how I said this was going like too well? I don't know how I ever thought this was going to work. I think I just naively assumed there was some sort of bracketing under here that would allow me to put this type of drive in, but it's a full width. Okay. decided it was in my best interest to do a little modification work. You can see those guide rails are no longer a problem, and this thing will slot right in there, and it has the right pin-out screw pattern, I should say. You know, and this is not impacted in any way. It can still hold 2 drives. So it's my computer, I can do what I want. Well, got it in there. It's a tight package, like I was saying, so I actually had to remove this network card to be able to get the cables in and everything, but it's looking good. Now, of course, I could have just grabbed another drive from the box. In fact, look at this one I found. IBM branded model from 1993, but it's only 170 megabytes. I don't think that's enough for what I'm trying to do today. And man, it just looks like it's not going to work. And all the other drives in the box are essentially this style of SCSI connector, so I would have had to, this is the wrong adapter, but you get the idea. I've got these adapters that would work, but I didn't want to deal with that. I'm feeling good about that Seagate. I think everything's looking good. It sees all our peripherals. Oh, and the fan sounds perfect, by the way. I can just hear normal fan noise and the whirring of that old hard drive. Which means it's time for another famous half-assed collab retro tutorial, this time on IBM NIM. Where to even begin? We are looking at the IBM NIM from A to Z in AIX 4.3 Redbook from the year 2000, which was apparently 25 years ago. We'll actually be referencing a newer version in this video today, but I just love this logo they had on this Ripple and NIM documentation. Now, IBM is always pretty coy with their acronyms. You got to kind of be in the club. This is a 330-page document, and it is not until page 17 that you actually get informed what NIM stands for, Network Installation Management. But the authors of this document have a pretty good sense of humor. They're saying, who would want to use NIM? If any of the following apply to you, you may want to use NIM. If you like using unusual acronyms, such as SPOT, LPP source, and BOSS Inst, or if you like saying Nemesis, we're already off to a good start here. And then of course, if you want to impress your boss by installing machines without physically touching them. The document I had the most luck with was a newer one, NIM from A to Z and AIX5L. And so this is the document I'm going to be predominantly referencing today. It is 680 pages. I sat down and I read this document and I started at the top because in the last video I was kind of shooting from the hip, just trying to make it work, and I was getting nowhere. And so I decided, yep, one morning I made a pot of coffee, I came down here, I was like, I'm going to read this whole document. And I'm happy to report, by the time you get to page 34, you will be successfully installing AIX over the network on another machine. And I should probably back up at this point. What is NIM? NIM is a software package you can install on an AIX instance, IBM's Unix variant, and it lets you net boot machines. Typically, you would use it to configure a bunch of machines on what's called the NIM server, the NIM master, and then you would remotely install an OS over the network, so you don't have to literally put, you know, like the physical media of AIX into each client machine. In the Sun Microsystems world, this would have been a jumpstart server. In modern day, it's called Pixie booting. There's probably a bunch of other options, but basically we'll be able to install some packages on a server, do a bunch of configuration. There will be many parts to this tutorial, and then we'll be able to remotely install AIX on that machine we've been messing with. Speaking of machines, I need to go over the physical hardware we're going to be doing this with. I've got a hefty IBM P5 machine at the bottom of the retro rack, which is running AIX in what's called an LPAR. You can think of it as a VM. I've installed the NIM packages onto that instance of AIX. Remember how I said this tutorial was half-assed? Well, I was only kind of joking. I'm not going to go through actually installing the NIM packages. I don't know anything about AIX, and I had no trouble getting this done. AIX has these thing called file sets, and so you need to install the NIM master client spot, these things. It's pretty straightforward. There are multiple guides online, including the PDF I was just looking at. You basically install some packages the same way you would with, apt-get in Ubuntu. I think this is pretty straightforward, especially if you know AIX. And the tutorials and instructions are all very clear about how to accomplish this part. This starter guide still hosted on the IBM website by Storm M. Harris. I assume they were an IBM employee or still are, I don't know. I'm going to link this down in the description. This part is very easy. It's not the interesting part. The part that's hard to wrap your head around are the resources that exist within a NIM master server. And there's three big ones. We've got things called LPP sources, we've got spots, and then we've got the machines. There's a bunch of other stuff that you can get pretty sophisticated with, but let's talk about what all this LPP source and spot stuff is all about. Let's start with LPP source, because once someone lays it out to you, it's probably the most straightforward one. It of course stands for Licensed Program Products Source. This is IBM's way of saying the operating system and the software it comes with. This might not be totally technically accurate, but a good way to think about it. An LPP source is the operating system. So I'm holding a Windows 98 SE disk here. This is a Windows 98 SE LPP source in the AIX world. You can customize them and add, custom software packages just the same way you can with any other operating system. But an LPP source is AIX. It is the operating system. And the way you do this is you literally put AIX install media in the machine and then run some commands, which I'll show you shortly. A spot is a little trickier. It of course stands for Shared Product Object Tree, which I think is probably a very AIX-y thing. Might not be NIM specific. But the critical piece is that it is equivalent in content to the code that resides in the /user file system. So a spot is created from an LPP source, and which I'll show you that soon. And it basically is a bunch of binary files, binary commands that can be used to bootstrap the whole install process. I'm assuming the spot gets sent over the network, and then it can do things like retrieve more files and leverage the LPP source to actually install. Now don't quote me on those last 10 seconds. I'm just assuming. And in fact, I'll just read it verbatim because it makes sense. Right in the documentation, it says the installation is performed over a network and there are no AIX CDs available. Device drivers, the BOS, that stands for Base Operating System. The acronyms will continue until morale improves. And other necessary code needed to perform a base operating system installation are found inside the spot. During the installation, the client machine NFS mounts this resource in order to access the code it needs for installation. So these are going to be a bunch of binaries that the 43P over there can actually use to perform its installation with some of the raw data, I suppose you could say, that lives in the LPP source. We might be getting a little ahead of ourselves, but we can try to walk through this. So a NIM client is going to reach out over boot P, save that for another video, and talk to the NIM master and say, hey, do you know about me? I'm 43P. That's what we're going to name this machine. The NIM master is going to say, yep, here's your spot. The NIM client, the 43P in this case, will leverage the binaries in that spot to be able to actually install the operating system onto a hard disk, at least in our case. It's probably time to fire up the NIM server, or an LPAR in our case. This is a KVM setup that's literally next to the machine I record all the screen recordings on over there. This is this video being edited. Wow. Anyway, that big IBM P5 monster is controlled through something called an HMC, and I have KVM access to it here. And we're going to log into it and get a console on that LPAR that's hosting the NIM server. It's an instance of AIX. And I'll try to give you some hands-on examples of what I've been describing verbally. Let's get logged in here. Look at this. This is so good. I literally have this sitting here all the time because I love these IBM machines so much. I'm pretty sure if you were a system administrator, this is the kind of NIM experience you probably were having. So here is that big guy with our NIM server on it. It's off, so I'm going to power it on remotely right now. I love this stuff. About a minute later, that server came up and we can go in here and it's got two LPARs, ClabPAR 1 and 2. And I can never remember which one is which, but ClabPAR 2 is the NIM server, and you can do weird stuff like assign 2.5 processing units to these things. Very bizarre. Anyway, we're going to get operations activate this current configuration. This is going to boot up the LPAR. I'm essentially turning the VM on, is what's happening here. And then we're also going to open a terminal window. This is SMS. This is the console version of that GUI we were looking at earlier. And I'm going to boot into AIX. Look at that. And there it says, welcome to AIX. Hopefully we see this on the 43p by the end of this video. I'm going to attempt to do something I'm not usually good at, which is a proper screen capture. So my eyes are going to be, the real monitor's over there and my OBS is over here, so it's going to be kind of weird, but I've got the keyboard in front of me and it's a little dark because I'm splitting the VGA. I have a VGA amplifier somewhere, but I can't find it. So we're going to get in here and we are in AIX. So when you install the NIM packages, you get a bunch of CLI utilities. A really important one is NIM. And here are all our NIM resources. So we can see I've already created an LPP source of AIX 5.1, which I believe is the oldest version of AIX this 443p over here can support, and I've made a spot out of it. Now it takes about 20 minutes each to make the LPP and then to make the spot. So I'm not going to do it again, but I'll show you what you have to do in order to accomplish this. And for a second anyway, we're going to have to talk about SMIT, or the System Management Interface Tool. So I'm going to type SMIT right here. This is SMIT. And basically it's a command line utility with interactive menus. You can set like the IP of the thing. And I've been totally sleeping on SMIT. I was like, oh, that's cheating. I use the CLI. In all the documentation that I'll link down below, they're going to show you the command line, the literal NIM commands you can do on the CLI, or they're going to show you the SMIT and SMITI are the same thing. I think SMITI was for a TTY device. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There are these things called fast paths. And so when I'm going to make this LPP source with you, or show you what you should do anyway, you can do SMITI NIM make resource. So check this out. To make our LPP source, we're going to do SMITI NIM make resource. And we can make all sorts of stuff. We can make a spot. We can make an LPP source. So we're going to go down to LPP source, and you can give it a name, and you can give it the server. And so in SMITI, you do F4 to get your options. This is the machine master. And then you can give it a location. In the instructions for how to set up NIM, you're going to make file systems where you're going to store this stuff. And so it'll be pretty straightforward if you're reading through the PDF about what you should type in here. And then the only other interesting one is source of install images. Do an F4 and you can see CD0. So literally on the front of the machine, like I was showing you, I have an AIX 5.1 CD in there, and that's all you would do. So I'm going to cancel out of this. And if we do an LSNIM again, of course, I already have an LPP source for 5.1. I called it LPP 5.1. Same deal. Now we need to make a spot out of the LPP source. And again, I'm not doing anything other than literally pressing enter here. This is what I did. It just takes 20 minutes each time. So now we're going to make a spot and we can give it a name and everything. Again, you'd want to assign it to this machine. And then we've got source of install images. Again, you can press F4 and I can assign it to the LPP we already made. Let's LSNIM again. I know this isn't all that straightforward because I'm zooming through it and not actually doing it. You literally do the SMIT make res, make an LPP source out of the CD you've put in your machine, and then you make a spot out of that LPP source. Speaking of machines, what's a machine? But first we're going on a side quest. That dark screen was pissing me off. So what's going on here is, here's the monitor. I guess I could just, never mind. So here's the monitor, and I've got this kind of like VGA splitter coming from the KVM. It's on the other side of the wall. And then one of them's going into here and one of them's going into here. So that's why it's so dark. It's getting split, right? So about this DTEC something or other VGA splitter. This is a powered VGA splitter, which will make that not look like crap, supposedly. Yeah, so we get the VGA from the KVM, and then one going to the monitor and one going to the OSSC here that I'm using for VGA capture to HDMI into my machine. We'll just find one more spot to plug this in. I don't think I'm using this one. Look at this. Okay. Get this going right here. If you look at it right, you can see the power LED. Oh my God, look how much better this looks. That's the KVM menu. Look how crisp that is. Get in here. Oh, man. I've had this thing for months. Oh, it's so much better. I should refilm that segment you just suffered through, bud. This is not my day job. Oh yeah, we got the Primo set up here with the 3 VGA cables. This is one of those really good Dell monitors too, where it's easy to plug in because you can just hit it with the whoop, and then you get to plug in. So nice. I have like a new view of the world, a new lease on life, guys. Look how much better this looks. The bad news for you is that I've had this for months, and I didn't know how good it would be. But the good news for you is that I'm going to start using it more. Let's get back to work. So we're going to make a machine. So we have an LPP source, which is AIX 5.1 in our case. We have a spot, which is basically some utilities and commands that let the machine actually leverage the LPP source. And now we need to configure a machine so that when we ripple boot the 43P and it tries to talk to this NIM master that we're looking at right now, they can get along and everything will go smooth. First thing we're going to do is edit etc hosts. So in here, you can see some of my attempts at making this work. We'll just get rid of that. And so the master, the machine I'm on now, is 10.00.41, and I'm assigning 10.00.44 to a machine I'm calling 43P. That's the host name of the machine we just put the hard drive in. So you're going to need to do this because the NIM stuff works off of host names, and it uses etc hosts, the file we're looking at right now, to map a host name to an IP. So I've already tried this to a certain extent. I have not installed AIX, but I got a machine set up and I got it. They were talking to each other, the 43P and this server. So we're going to do this together. I deleted the machine I had already defined. So we're going to do SMIDI NIM make machine. And in here, we can do host name of the machine, 43P. I'm going to press enter. And then there's a few things to worry about. So chirp, hardware platform type. When I tried this before, I had left the machine type as chirp, and I got this error when I was trying to boot over the network. Validation failed. The test method client interface service does not exist. So I Googled that exact error, and I got this presentation from 2007 from Steve Knutson? I don't know. And it's apparently some presentation he made in 2007 about NIM basics. And on the literal last page of this presentation is that exact error. And he tells me exactly what I should do. The machine was defined as chirp, CHRP. I don't know if you actually say chirp. I made that up. Should have been defined as RSPC. And then back over here, we can change the platform type. There were several platform types for the RS6000 machines. And we're going to set this, in my case anyway, to RS. Maybe. My arrow keys stopped working. There they go. RSPC. And then we're going to go down to cable type. Press F4. It is a twisted pair Ethernet. And that's pretty much it. We have a standalone install type, meaning I'm going to boot that machine up, ripple boot that machine. It's going to talk to the NIM server that we're configuring right here. And hopefully install AIX. So I'm going to press enter on the SMIT screen, and you can see it says running in the upper left. Takes a few moments, and then it says OK. So we're going to Control C, and we'll do ls nim again. And now we've got this machine defined 43P. And as I'm doing this, I realized I missed a step. So let me show you the beauty of SMIDI. So SMIT NIM, that's the fast path to NIM. And we're going to perform NIM administration tasks. And I need to change something about the machine that I got wrong before. So manage machines, change show characteristics of a machine, and we'll choose 43P. And what I need to change is this kernel to use for network boot. Press F4. I set mine to MP, kernel for multiprocessor machines. I don't know if this is necessary. It's just what I happened to do before when I was testing and it worked. So I'm going to change that, and then I'm going to press enter. And it likes it. Everything is cool. Now we need to do one more thing, and this is the part I'm the least familiar with. So we're going to do SMIT again, and we're going to say NIM task inst. I think it stands for install. We're going to install a BOS, the base operating system for a standalone client. That is our guy right here. We can choose 43P, and we want to do an RTE. I need to remind myself what this particular acronym stands for. It stands for Runtime Environment. I'm literally following the PDF guide, by the way. So because this machine is going in fresh and we're going to have to boot it up and do a ripple boot, I'll show you that, tell it how to talk to the NIM master we've been configuring. For whatever reason, they call it an RTE boot. There's stuff about like mksysb and some other stuff and some boss inst, and we'll deal with that in the next section. So we'll choose RTE, and we're going to use the LPP 5.1 resource we were talking about and the associated spot. That's fine. And then all the documentation says you should change accept license agreements to yes. And then a bunch of them complain about this initiate, reboot, and installation now. They say change that to no. I think if this machine had already been configured with the NIM server, maybe you would like accidentally remotely reboot it while someone's using it. I'm not sure. And then down here, we've got another accept new license agreements. Again, I don't know if you actually have to do this. I'm just following the instructions, and we are going to press enter and enter again, and it's good. The instructions say to inspect one file before you attempt your ripple. And so we're going to cat etc boot p tab, and down there we can see 43p has been defined as 10.0044, and it knows about the master 10.0041. I think we're ready to power this thing on. Okay, this thing is on the same network as our NIM master server we were just configuring. So we're going to get in here to utilities, and we're going to take a look at ripple set address. So I've already done this. Remember, in our etc host file, this machine is 43p. That's its host name, and it's got a client address of 10.0044. Now, I've read in a bunch of different documents that obviously my server is 10.0041, and you're supposed to set the gateway to the server as well. I don't know how necessary that is, but let's get out of here. Well, actually, I suppose we'll do a ping. This is kind of weird, so you have to like set your adapter, and we're integrated. So what's going to happen is the integrated adapter is going to try to ping the server. It thinks everything is cool and that it can see 10.0041, which is our server. And let's get out of here and go to boot options again and make sure. So our SCSI hard drive is not in the boot order yet, but integrated Ethernet should be able to talk to our Ripple server, and that looks good. So if we exit, we should see a Ripple boot attempt at any rate. And if the hard drive's bad, we'll just throw the blue SCSI in. It definitely was able to talk to the server because packet count is going up. The retry counts have not. That is really good. We'll let that plug away. So it reboots, which is very alarming. But I think it's loaded something into memory and has some register set where it knows it's going to like load that the next reboot or something. So we'll see what happens. Yes, and then we have a gray screen with a green cursor. Please define the system console. That hard drive almost certainly doesn't have AIX installed on it. There's no install media. This is coming from our NIM server. This was tricky last time, so I'm going to press F1. Yeah, you have to press F1 and then enter and then again. All right, it's asking us for the language. And so, yes, we've got the BOS, Base Operating System installation. The farthest I got, troubleshooting the NIM instance so that I could explain to you how it works, is it would complain about no drive, obviously. But now we've got a drive in there. And so we're just going to go start install with default settings. Yep, that's fine. It's pretty weird to see this with the GUI. So usually you would be doing this over the serial console. And I'm a little worried because it's 10:30 at night and I just kicked this off, and AIX installs, in my experience, take eons. However, after a few moments, we are approximate % tasks complete. 2. Making logical volumes. I can hear that poor drive clicking away in there. Okay, it's been about a minute, and the fact that we're at 3% is actually making me feel better. You can hear that poor drive writing away. It likes the drive, so I'll be back in 8 hours. It is so cool hearing that old drive clank away. So we're at 7% complete, it claims, after about 2 or 3 minutes. That's not that bad. Why is that faster than those big P5s? It's at like 50% and let's see, 17 minutes, 49%. And this IBM stuff when they're installing AIX is fascinating because like every little person they ever worked with, I wish I caught it before that screen scrolled. Sun Microsystems, HP was on there. And we're saying US government users restricted rights. Like they just spew this legalese at you. Copyright, International Business Machines Corp, 1994, 2002. It just sprays that at you. I wish I could capture the sound of this poor drive that is being destroyed. It's ridiculous. IBM was actually in the running for buying Sun Microsystems. We've got some copyright Sun Microsystems 92, 97 legalese right here. It would have been interesting if IBM had bought them. IBM was all in on Java, and Oracle ended up buying Sun, of course, and everyone kind of gets all sad about that, but Sun was in bad shape. I'd like to do a video deep diving into their... Hold on. On here we've got AT&T, 1984, 85, 86, 87. Some Unix stuff. Copyright Unix Systems Labs. I know I keep showing you this, but it's just so ridiculous. We're 24 minutes in, and we're 66% done. I do really like the AIX. Kind of throws you a bone and shows you how far it is. Got some bad news. So it says it's 93% complete at 39 minutes. But that was 40 minutes ago. It's just been sitting here on this mksysb. Remember how I was telling you, it was like, oh, installing NIM is so easy. You just make a couple file systems or whatever. Pretty sure mine's like full. So I've got this dev sf1v00 export easy NIM. That must be how I did it before. And it's 97% full. I'm pretty sure that's what's hanging up our install over there. I think it's the server's fault, not the client's fault. I've got bad news. It's the next night, and I thought I had a slam dunk with that file system stuff. I'll show you what I attempted after this. And so I started a new install. I thought I was running out of space on the NIM master, and I'm stuck again at mksysb. It has completed, I think, and then I can press enter, and the machine just is stuck at 93%. Also just watched my Mariners lose game 1. That's only going to make sense in October of 2025. We got a Mariners situation here that it just can't quite get it done. So one nice thing about these old drives is you can tell when they're doing something. So right now it's just spinning. And I would say every 5 minutes I hear a click as if it's reading or writing. Nothing on the screen. And so I'm going to do something I'm not very comfortable with. I'm going to leave all this on. It's pretty late. I'm just going to go to bed. I'm going to turn the monitors off. I'm going to leave the retro rack running. I'm going to leave this poor thing running. And hopefully when I wake up, it's done. It might be the case that we've got some sort of very slow process taking place. And yeah, if you don't see another video from me, well, I suppose you won't see this one, but you'll know it went terribly wrong and my house is gone and, you know, good night. It's 9 hours later, and that didn't work. Back to the drawing board. Time to do a little more debugging. You can interact with these RS6000 machines over the serial port as well as with the video card. Sort of on a whim, I had this gut instinct to try kicking off that same install over the serial console. Kicked it off, came back 40 minutes later, and I had an AIX login prompt. For whatever reason, doing it over the serial connection solved the problem. I can even go to the machine and log in directly, leveraging the video output now. Just for full transparency, in between my install attempts, remember I was thinking I was running out of space where I was storing the spot in the LPP source. So if we do a df-g, I had been storing the spot and the LPP source in this EasyNIM file system that I had created when I first installed the NIM server. I was thinking maybe it was running out of space and that was causing problems and halting the install. So I deleted the spot and I actually moved it over here. You can see it's got half of its space available and it freed up some space in the file system the LPP source was in. That didn't seem to be the problem. I don't know why installing it over the serial console allowed it to continue. Maybe the monitor just wasn't showing us that it was indeed actually done. No idea, but we've done it. Oh, don't worry about these automatic error log analysis for the sysplanar 0. That's just one of the power supplies not plugged in. It doesn't like that. So the next thing to do is see if we can actually boot directly from the hard disk. I haven't tried this yet. I halted the AIX instance that was running right after the install that came over the network, and I think I have this configured for the SCSI disk to be the boot drive. So we're gonna get out of here and restart this machine, and hopefully we boot into AIX. I hear the hard drive doing stuff. Come on, buddy. Yes, we're getting into that gray graphical terminal here. The drive is clanging away. Come on, dude. It did it. Took like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. This drive, so this drive has survived 2 failed install attempts, 1 successful install attempt, and now it booted. I don't know that this drive has much time left. Look at this. That was not over the network, obviously. We have installed AIX with NIM. This is AIX 5.1, I believe from the year 2000-ish. And I think maybe we have some graphical capabilities. So let's do X init. Oh baby. We have an X environment. We'll let it keep going. I don't know what kind of desktop we have. Yes! Oh yeah, look at this. Putting that video card to work. We've got the X clock. Classic. And here's just our terminal. Come on. Okay, you hold right click. Let's see here. What do we got? System management. Oh, I bet I need a Unix mouse. I don't think it's liking this 2-button mouse very much. That's okay. New window. Oh, I can make a new X term. Yeah, I can't open system management. That's okay though. This is sweet. Let's give this poor thing a rest. I wonder if I have to halt twice. There it goes. Now, I did this once before, right after the install, of course. I halted it, just like you normally would. And it will actually eventually turn the machine off. Halt completed. And the machine just shut off. The drive is spinning down. And then you probably noticed I jammed this drive assembly in improperly. These little tabs are not supposed to be right there. So the next time I open this thing up, I'll fix that. I think the plan for this is I'll actually put a blue SCSI in here, and so then we could actually get some applications on here, like some CAD applications that someone might have actually used on a Unix workstation like this, and play around a little bit. So that'll be in a future video. Pretty sure I promised you some NIM bonus content though. I wanted to cover a couple other acronyms that I found interesting in the documentation. You're going to see a lot of reference to this mksysb. It's referenced in this AIX A to Z document like hundreds and hundreds of times. A mksysb resource is basically a image backup of an existing AIX install. You literally use the AIX mksysb command to produce one of these, and I believe you can actually take a image backup from a known good install, and with the NIM server install it onto a remote machine. I just thought that was kind of interesting. That might be something to try later. If you're doing this fresh like me, you won't have to deal with this, but it's definitely in the documentation. You're going to see it a lot. Another spicy one is a boss inst data resource. Basically, if you remember, I had to like choose a language manually as I was installing AIX. The boss inst data is literally a text file with a bunch of key value pairs that predefine those decisions so that you can essentially have a headless install. I'm trying to find an example of what one of these files looks like. I swear I saw one. Here's one. So auto accept licenses. What's another good one? Existing system overwrite. So whether I think you can perform like upgrades. This is just going to wipe the disk and do a fresh install, for example. I just thought mksysb and the boss inst data was sort of worth mentioning. I need to tell you about the eventful morning I had. I kicked off that serial install that ultimately succeeded. I was sitting upstairs and the fire alarm went off, the whole house. I didn't really realize this, but they're all interconnected. So if one goes off, they all go off. And these newer ones, they like verbally talk to you. It has some recording that's like fire, danger, or whatever. So I ran down here so fast and I made a beeline for the fire extinguisher because those servers and this old guy had been on for like 20 hours. It's probably the longest they've ran in 10 or 15 years. So I was thinking, oh shit, the IBM NIM server is going to blow my house up. Get down here, no fire. Everything's cool. The install is progressing just fine on the serial console. Super weird. So I go back upstairs, and then every 10, 15 minutes, the fire alarm would go off again, like for a second or like for 5 seconds. One time it went off for like a full 30 seconds and then turned itself off. And you can't really tell what area of the house it's coming from once it's all blaring because it's super loud. And I have 2 cats, by the way. Needless to say, this was not a good morning for them. Finally, one time it went off, I could hear a very first chirp down here in the basement. So finally I actually figured out which one was triggering. And of course, it's the one that's right next to the servers, and there's also a furnace in there. But I get down there and like, there's no fire. I can tell if there's a fire. And I get up there and I'm like pressing the test button and it's behaving really weird. I can't get it to go into test mode right. I can't get it to hush properly. And when I started doing that, it starts complaining about carbon monoxide. Also incredibly concerning. Again, there's like a furnace in the other room. And so I thought, well, okay, fine. I'll replace the batteries. That's kind of the first move with these things. And right when I put brand new batteries, known good batteries in, it starts complaining about low battery. And so I was like, yeah, you know what, buddy? No. And so I yanked it out of the system entirely. And I think this one has gone bad. I didn't know that that was a thing. But this one claims it can last for 10 years. It's only been 5 years, and I think this is faulty. Now, I'm still pretty concerned about the carbon monoxide thing it was chirping about briefly. You know when there's a fire. There either is one or not. But carbon monoxide, you don't really know. You might just start feeling dizzy and slowly fall asleep and then maybe not wake back up. So I'm going to get a replacement for this guy, and I'm a little relieved just because of the layout of the basement and probably to be to code. This was technically in a hallway, and maybe 4 feet from this one is another one inside a bedroom that has full air access to the same area. So I think I just had a bad unit. Anyway, I'm telling you that because I thought the IBM NIM server was going to burn my house down. But that's it for this one. We installed AIX over the network with a NIM server. I sort of still in shock when I saw it work. I mean, I knew it just should work. I was following all the instructions, and once you kind of wrap your head around all the concepts, it's straightforward. But yeah, we did it. I hope you enjoyed following along on this very IBM video. There will be more videos in the future on content like this. I'll catch you in the next one.